So the handbook has been provided to you. The student teacher will bring a hard copy version of the handbook with them on their very first day. And one of their assignments is to review the handbook with the cooperating teacher. And with this narrated screencast, you have also been sent a PDF version of the entire handbook. This handbook is intended to orient new teacher candidates and their clinical supervisors to the teaching practices and policies developed by the Department of Teacher Education at York. We will answer, hopefully, all of the questions that you might have about working with our student teachers and provide you with some guidelines and advice as well. I want to go over the general requirements in terms of hours and time spent. Our candidates can fulfill their student teaching requirements in one of two ways. Most of them who are working in your school will be completing their student teaching in one semester. So this is our full-time option. And what that means is that they'll be spending 14 weeks in your school. That's full-time. They're expected to show up for every school day that is in session, so 5 work days every week if school is in session all week, roughly from 8 a.m. until 3 p.m., although the times may vary according to school. And what we do is we split that semester into 2 7-week placements. So placement 1, 7 weeks, should happen in a lower grade. So if we're speaking about elementary candidates, that would be in grades 1, 2, or 3. We consider that a lower grade, lower level. For secondary candidates, that would be in grades 7 through 12 would be the lower grades. And then their final 7 weeks in an upper grade. So if these are elementary candidates, they're going to be working in grades 4, 5, or 6. And for our secondary candidates, they're going to be working in grades 10, 11, or 12. Those are considered the upper grades. For physical education student teachers, they're required to do one placement in an elementary setting and one placement in a secondary setting. So if you have a physical education candidate and you are middle school, they can fulfill that by working in a 6th grade classroom for part of the time and a 7, 8 classroom for part of the time, just depending. And of course, we do have some flexibility. The state gives us some flexibility about those placements. They can change a little bit. They don't have to be exactly 7 weeks and 7 weeks. And if you have any questions about that, please contact me, Trace Leahy, to address any questions. We can certainly work with you. If a student teacher is going part-time, then they'll go into your school for the entire semester and they'll work in one particular classroom or grade. Even though they are going to be student teaching part-time, we require them to attend every weekday just for morning. So they might split their student teaching and work from, say, 8 until 10 or 8 until 11, whatever the schools work out with the candidates. And we do that so that there's some sort of a consistency for cooperating teachers and also students. They get used to seeing that student teacher every day. So we do ask them, even if they're part-time, to show up every day. And again, they'll be working for 14 weeks in one classroom part. Additional requirements, we will ask you, administrators or cooperating teachers, to provide our candidates with either a time card so that they can clock in and out, and we actually keep those at the end of their placement. They'll bring those back to the college and we'll file them so that we have evidence of their hours from the state for the state. If you don't have time cards or a time clock, it's okay to use a paper document on which the candidate records their hours, and then someone in the school, either the administrator or the cooperating teacher, or maybe a designee in the office is signing off to verify that those hours are accurate. We ask our candidates to attend a professional conference. I will actually be providing them with possibilities, but if the cooperating teacher is attending a professional conference at the time when the student teacher is there, it would be really helpful if they could attend the conference with you. And again, if there are any questions about what constitutes a professional conference, um, the cooperating teacher can ask me or the candidate can ask me. If the teacher candidate is absent, we do require that they notify the school office, the cooperating teacher, and also their college supervisor. So, as part of their team, the college provides a supervisor, a clinical supervisor, who will make contact with the cooperating teacher prior to their arrival at the school. They will be coming into the building to observe and evaluate the student teacher at 3 different points per placement so that they can make sure everything is going well. And if the cooperating teacher has any questions, concerns, issues, they're encouraged to contact the clinical supervisor, who is a liaison to the college. And again, they will make themselves known to the cooperating teacher once the semester gets underway. If there are absences, especially consecutive absences, such as 2 days in a row, we ask the cooperating teacher to let the clinical supervisor and the clinical professor know. We take that seriously. And of course, if someone misses, we try to be flexible, but about 3 or more times, we may require that they extend their placement period because it's important that they get the necessary hours because we assume that they're going to be leading their own classroom at the teaching. Um, the the role responsibilities of the school or agency um, are really important, obviously, for the success of the student teacher. So we just ask that you consider the following requirements to do the following. Obviously, to promote a culture within the school that encourages positive relations and open communication and sharing and support. I think this would be especially important for the EdTPA preparation, helping the candidate to locate any technical services that they might need in order to record. That's probably the most important part of the EdTPA that schools can help candidates with the recording and also the permissions that they'll need from students and their families so that they can record them for their EdTPA. And then just to make sure that the placement is in a classroom that's either effective or highly effective, if that's possible, so that we know our clinical mentors are of the highest quality. And also to just give the teacher candidate an orientation to the building, who's who might support their efforts, who can they learn from in a school. Uh, we addressed the time card earlier, that's important. Um, Maintaining open and timely communications with York College is very important. So if there are any questions or concerns of candidates, they're always professional. We haven't had any unprofessional student teachers. But if, for example, someone was behaving in a manner that seemed unprofessional, to let us know so that we can get a handle on that. Or if a candidate seems to be struggling, to please communicate that with us. We do ask that administrators participate in our TEC council. You'll receive an invitation every spring for the Teacher Education Unit Council, and this is where we actually plan with our administrators, going forward, how we can improve our program, our communication, the experience for both our cooperating teachers and our student teachers, and of course the students who are participating in this collaboration. And again, please provide feedback to us as often as possible. It's so important. The cooperating teacher plays a fundamental role in the clinical practice. So we really hope that the cooperating teacher is one who is not only an effective educator, but who is also interested in and willing to mentor um, a developing teacher. So some of the roles and responsibilities that we're going to ask you to take on is this, the first one bullet point here is to assist the candidate in selecting an effective teacher work sample unit topics. So the candidates have a lot of work that they're actually completing in the student teaching seminar, and the ETWS is requires them to plan and teach a unit. So to help them project when they come in, maybe the first or second week, help them to identify a topic that they might teach, something that you're already planning to teach, maybe in week 5 or 6 of their placement, and to help them figure out how they might pull out 3 lessons that they could teach on that topic. I will be helping them in the seminar as well to identify and locate that topic, but obviously we need to coordinate with your plan, and it should be something that is cohesive with what you're already planning to do. So helping them to plan, helping them to administer an assessment, a summative assessment, as well as a variety of formative assessments within those plans, and of course to videotape those by week 6 or 7 of their placement. That's a really important role that a cooperating teacher can play. That helps set our candidates up for success on the TPA, which is an extensive portfolio examination if you didn't teach, if you didn't actually take that one. Um, Please treat the teaching candidates as new professionals. Our expectations are very high, and yours should be high too. So hold them, to high expectations, but also, know that this is their very first teaching experience. They've completed field work, and they've spent time observing in classes, but they're very nervous when they first start. So, being um, encouraging, positive, communicating, and supporting your student teacher will go a long way to ensuring their success. Please review classroom, whatever your classroom policies, routines, rules, transitions, that can be helpful as they're starting to teach. And then please meet with them regularly, taking, even if it's just a small amount of time out every day, to let them know how they're doing, give them feedback, help them plan, let them know what's coming up and what they can do and how they can improve, and also doing well. Um, Provide your candidates with class lists, copies of text, curricular text can be really important. The school calendar, any materials that are going out to families so that they can look at and learn from those. Again, we recommend in the handbook a progression. We really spell that out, going from observing maybe the first couple of days to then taking on one class slowly, so that by the time they have gone into week 7, they can teach the entire day, and that's really important because you know how much energy goes into teaching all day long. Our candidates really need to experience that, because that's a crucial part of teaching. So again, by the second week of their placement, they really should be working at least 1 or 2 classes a day where they're leading the whole group. And it's nice to move from maybe working individually with students when they first get there to small groups, but then, having some practice leading whole groups, managing classrooms, managing diverse learners, those kinds of challenges they'll need help with. And again, to provide ongoing, honest, and constructive feedback. So not just saying, oh, you did well all the time, but also, helping them set some goals and observing them and letting them know how they are doing in terms of meeting those goals. And then any concerns that come up to address honestly and openly, just like you do with your students in the classroom. In terms of instructional planning, we're often asked what kinds of lesson plans our student teachers should be using. Generally, for the day-to-day planning, we recommend that they use whatever lesson planning template is being used by the cooperating teacher or in the school. And that might be a sort of a general lesson planning template. In our handbook, at the end of the handbook, we actually have a very general lesson plan template that they can use, and that's sort of on a daily basis. We do have what we call the EdTPA lesson plans, and these are more extensive lesson plans that we ask our candidates to complete for that ETWS that I mentioned earlier, and also when they're being observed by their clinical supervisors. So we do provide, those are also at the back of the handbook, a template for what we call the EdTPA lesson plans. Those are designed to support the EdTPA preparation, so they include a lot more extensive information, but our candidates don't have to use those every day. They will complete EdTPA lesson plans somewhere between 8 and 10 times in their placement. And then, of course, we expect that the lesson plans that our student teachers are actually executing in the classroom, they, to some extent have been deemed acceptable by the cooperating teachers, so that the student teacher is not getting up and teaching something that hasn't been vetted, because again, we know that the students who are in your classroom really deserve to have the best, well planned, and vetted instruction. We ask again that the cooperating teachers take some time out to speak with the student teachers. And again, it could happen daily or weekly. So on this slide, we have, and also in the handbook, some goals of daily conferences. So that might be just day-to-day logistics, what's going to happen today, what's going to happen tomorrow, the review of any lesson plans that the cooperating teacher is expecting the student teacher to teach, to ensure understanding of the immediate needs and interests of the children in the class. Some cooperating teachers actually share IEPs or 504 plans. Some cooperating teachers will simply identify students in the classroom who have particular criteria have to be met for them. But really to communicate, the diverse learning needs of the students in the classroom, and maybe help the student teacher understand some of the best methods that are being used in that classroom to address the various needs in the classroom. Meeting daily might accomplish some sort of reflection on the day's work, and then of course providing some feedback. Weekly conferences, again, they could take place, whenever it's convenient, but this might be sort of goal setting with the candidate, the student teacher, guiding them in sort of understanding how they're doing, making sure that their sense of how they're doing as they gain confidence teaching a whole group sort of jives with the cooperating teachers. And again, just lots of feedback on the candidates, their skills as teachers, their disposition as teachers, and also their goals. And we do ask that you work with them on, we call it a plan book, and that's just a set of lesson plans that the candidate is developing, that you work on those ahead of time so that they have some time to go home with the curriculum and review it and make their plan. When the evaluations by the clinical supervisors, who will come in again at three times during each placement, we ask that those evaluations are scheduled in conjunction between the cooperating teacher and the clinical supervisor, so that they're finding the times that are most convenient for both of those. And I would say that the cooperating teacher always has preference, because you're running a busy classroom, and the clinical supervisor will be flexible to accommodate you. When they come in, it's really helpful if some time can be spent where the mentors, the clinical supervisor, the cooperating teacher, and the student teacher can meet briefly, just to speak about, to debrief the lesson, and to speak about how well the instruction went, and also to set some goals. This just helps to make sure that everybody is on the same page in terms of goals and progress, and just helps the teacher candidate to have a more cohesive understanding of what they need to do and what they're doing well. And again, the meetings don't have to be very long. They could be 7 to 10 minutes and still be really helpful for that candidate. We will ask our cooperating teachers to complete some assessments. What you should know is that your student teachers will provide cooperating teachers with blank assessments, and so you don't have to print anything. And after you fill those out, they'll also provide you with an envelope. We'll just ask you to seal it, just like you would a transcript, and either initial or sign the back so that we know it's you. And we ask you to seal it so that you don't feel as if the candidate is looking at your evaluations, if you want to submit something to us that's more confidential. The very first assessment that I want to speak about, we call it Assessment H, and that's the biweekly feedback form. Um, every 2 weeks, we're going to provide you with a very quick form to fill out. It's almost like a survey, and we're going to ask you how the students are doing in terms of the student teachers are doing in terms of their teaching skills and their professional dispositions, and whether or not they have been absent. We're also going to ask you, and this is really important, if you identify an area of concern, challenge, or weakness in the student teacher, please let us know, because we can be flexible in the student teaching seminar and address that topic, and we will with the candidate. So for example, if classroom management seems to be a particular challenge, please write that on the biweekly feedback form, and I will make sure that we address classroom management and strategies in the seminar, so that we can be helping to support the student teacher both in the classroom at school and in the classroom at your college. The other assessment is Assessment I. This is an assessment that will be filled in during week 7, so at the very end of the placement. And this really asks the cooperating teacher to evaluate the candidate's execution of a lesson based on their observation of several lessons. So maybe 3 lessons you'll observe in week 7, and then you'll write in your impression of the skills and the knowledge and the dispositions that you see at work in the execution of lessons, and then we'll have you evaluate the student teacher based on your observation of several lessons that they teach. Assessment C is a disposition. So we're going to ask you to evaluate the candidate's professional dispositions. Are they professional? Are they timely? Are they open to working with diverse students? Are they reflective? Are they open to suggestions? Those kinds of topics. And again, Assessment I and Assessment C, we just ask you to complete those at the very end of the placement. So it's really just a one-time shot at both of those. And again, the student teacher will return these in a sealed envelope. So you can we recommend that for Assessment I and C that you do share your evaluation, just so that you can have some dialogue with them about that. Assessment H, that can be completely confidential if you like, especially if a candidate is struggling and you want the clinical professor to know. Just know that anything that you want to be kept confidential, we will keep confidential. I think I spoke earlier about the progression of increased responsibilities for the teacher candidate. This just highlights again how important this is. And, the progression usually goes from teaching individuals or small groups, tutoring as directed by the cooperating teacher, all the way through leading a whole class, and then leading several classes by the end of their 7th week. They should assume responsibility not only for instruction, but also for planning, for extended periods of time. They need to know what goes into planning, the literacy lesson, the math lesson, whatever it is or if it's physical education, planning for an entire day and then executing it. And then to the extent that it's possible, the student teachers really benefit when they can sit in on parent-teacher conferences. That's, as a really important part of the job. If they can attend professional development sessions at the school, any kinds of, faculty or team meetings, if they can participate in field trips, if they can participate in assemblies, that's always really helpful too. And finally, here's our contact information. Don't hesitate to contact us. with questions or concerns. And again, thank you for your support of our student teachers and contribution to the field.